All right, I think we're going to go ahead and get started. Hello and welcome to Parker Water's webinar. Just a reminder that this webinar is being recorded today. We are here to introduce our draft water efficiency master plan. It is our guide to water conservation. I am Heather Justice, Parker Water's water resource manager. With me today is Courtney Black. She is a senior water resources engineer with Terra, and Heather Johnson, Parker Water's water efficiency specialist. Please put any questions in the chat. Next slide, please. Parker Water was established in 1962 to provide water and wastewater service utility in Parker and its surrounding areas as it has grown to include portions of Castle Pines, Lone Tree, and unincorporated Douglas County. Our vision is sustaining life for our community. We work to accomplish this vision by providing our growing community with secure, long-term, high-quality water and wastewater services. Next slide, please. Parker Water relies on multiple sources to serve our growing community, including the surface water from Cherry Creek and Newland Gulch, and groundwater from our Cherry Creek alluvial aquifers and the Denver Basin aquifers. We also rely on WISE, which is Water Infrastructure and Supply Efficiency Partnership, and reusable return flows. As we look towards the future, we know that the Denver Basin will continue to have declining water levels. Coupled with growth, we need to look for renewable sources for the future. Some of these sources will include the Platte Valley Water Partnership Project and more WISE water. To ensure long-term sustainability, it is incumbent upon all of us to adopt practices that support efficient and responsible water use. I'll turn the time over now to Courtney, please.
Thank you, Heather. Next slide, please. Okay, so we're going to take a little bit of a history lesson, and this is an image of the town of Parker back when it was first starting to be settled. It was settled back in the 1840s, and some quick trivia, the first settler's last name was Parker. So as you can obviously tell, things have substantially changed. Next slide, please. The area in general, Castle Pines, Lone Tree, Parker, unincorporated county, the areas that Heather had mentioned that Parker Water serves, has grown tremendously over the past 100 years or so. And with that naturally comes an increase in water demands over time with more people in the area. Next slide, please. So with that, we have some data here to show you. I'd like to point you to the gray line at first, and that is showing population increase in Parker Water Service area from 2014 to 2024. And over on the y-axis is the population. And so you can see, just looking at this graph, that we have gone from, let's say, roughly 45,000 to 75,000 people in the past 10 years, which is significant, a significant amount of growth. And in response to that, the bar charts here representing water demands, you are seeing an increase in water demands. No big surprise there. The dark blue portion of these bar charts are indicative of indoor water use. The light green is outdoor, and we also have bulk, and bulk is really representative of more of the temporary water use. A huge chunk of it, for instance, is construction water. So the amount of new development that goes in on an annual basis really plays into how much bulk water is used. One point to really bring home here, besides an obvious increase in water demands, is that in most of these years, actually 8 out of 10 of these years, Parker's water, over 50% of Parker's water's use exceeds 50%, which is pretty typical of water use across the Front Range amongst a variety of water providers. And so that's just something to be mindful of, is that outdoor water component. Next slide, please. And so when we look at Parker Water's customer base, approximately 60% is single family, 9% multifamily. So if you add those together, roughly 70% of customer water use is attributed to residential. In addition to that, if you look at the green on this pie chart, that comes from your irrigation only accounts. And so these are accounts that are dedicated to the irrigation of large open spaces, also including HOAs. So if you take a portion of that green and consider it to be HOA and you add that in with the multifamily and single family, that's significant from a residential standpoint. And really what this is saying is that as an individual public member, when you collectively start thinking about your water use with all of your neighbors, that collectively residents can make a significant difference on what the water demands are within Parker Water. Next slide, please. So let's just zoom out for a moment and we're going to look at the 48 states in the United States here. This is showing average annual precipitation. And the darker color, the darker blues are indicative of higher precip. So no surprise, Pacific Northwest, very wet. We have natural rainforest there. And in the eastern United States, as we know, there's a lot of trees. It's green. It's very lush. They get a lot of precipitation relative to the Front Range of Colorado. And as you travel east to west and you kind of cross that middle mark, it starts to become significantly drier. The landscape changes. You go from lush green trees to the Great Plains, which are more natural grass prairie. And by the time you get to the Front Range in Colorado, we are getting just about 17 inches of precip a year. And we're considered living in an upland desert. And so that's really important to think about when we're talking about long-term sustainability here, is to recognize that we live in an upland desert and that water efficiency and conservation must be a way of life moving forward. Next slide, please. So on top of that average 17 inches of precipitation we get per year, another key point to bring home here is that in Colorado, drought is a normal occurrence. And if you look at the Drought Monitor, it's a federal resource. It's a mapping service that shows drought conditions in North America. The upper left-hand corner is showing Colorado's current status. So anything in yellow is representing abnormally dry. And then as you start to increase in the level of redness down to kind of that burnt red D4 exceptional drought rating, you can see that currently the western slope of Colorado, particularly that backwards L, the D3, the extreme drought, that western Colorado right now is in a fairly big drought, particularly that backwards L, as well as down south in the San Luis Valley. Over on the plains, doing pretty well at the moment. But if you look at just south of Denver, around where Parker Water is, currently in more of an abnormally dry condition. And these conditions change on a weekly basis. And another point, if you look at the right-hand side here where you see this other diagram, what this is showing is the percentage of land in Colorado that is in some level of drought spanning from the year 2000 out to 2025. So the past 25 years, you see that almost all the time, some portion of Colorado is in some level of drought. And again, that's just important to think about, that drought is not an abnormal thing, and that when we're thinking about planning and long-term planning, that is also something to include and incorporate into our planning activities, particularly when it comes to water. Next slide, please. So in light of that question of which type of landscape tends to use more water, we've got more of the monoculture Kentucky bluegrass turf lawn that we see throughout the Front Range, and also a lot of portions in the United States in general. And then we have more of a diverse landscape full of different types of flowers. Some of these are native. Some of these are flowers that still do well in environments that do not need as much precipitation. So very climate appropriate vegetation. And this is what Parker Water is calling Coloradoscape. So it's a mixture of native, non-native. It can also include a lot of native grasses. And one thing that's nice about Colorado Scape is you see the nice, happy, friendly bee in the upper left-hand corner, and this one, the flower, the red penstemon below. That it just really provides a lot of ecological value. There's a lot of different types of species here. A lot of pollinators love these flowers, and it's healthy for the environment as well. So Kentucky bluegrass uses more water on an average basis than the Colorado Scape. Another thing to point out here when it comes to drought resiliency, Kentucky bluegrass can actually survive a pretty substantial drought. Now it does go dormant and it turns brown, so it may not be as aesthetically pleasing. Colorado Scape is also very drought resilient. The one difference is that if you have to go under water restrictions that a lot of providers have to do during drought conditions, the Colorado Scape has a much higher chance of still remaining aesthetically beautiful, given that they don't use as much water anyway, than more of a brown, dormant Kentucky bluegrass lawn. So that's also something to consider. As we all know, there's still a lot of turf green lawns throughout the Front Range. And it's important that if you do have a turf lawn, to just be mindful of how efficient your actual irrigation is being, that you're not irrigating concrete sidewalks, there's not a lot of spray, that you're following a lot of the best practices when it comes to irrigation. And if available, if you have good, high quality, efficient irrigation equipment too, is helpful with that. Next slide, please. So back to some data here. Parker Water has a long history of water efficiency and conservation. They've made a lot of efforts in reducing water use, and they've been successful in doing it. What this chart is showing is per capita water use, so water use per person in gallons per capita per day. And it's differentiating indoor water use, the navy blue, with total per capita water use in the gray. To draw your attention to the navy blue, this is showing indoor per capita over the past 10 years, and you can see a downward trend. It's pretty clear here. And this is pretty typical of what we are seeing in Colorado, in the United States, when it comes to indoor use. And a lot of this downward trend has been attributed to improved technologies when it comes to fixtures and appliances. So toilets do not need as much water when they flush anymore, or dishwashers and clothes washers that aren't using as much water. And so when it comes to Parker Water, both efforts to introduce those more efficient technologies, as well as just with new development, new homes bring in the more up-to-date technology. And that's where we're seeing progressively lower per person, lower per capita water use over time from an indoor perspective. From an outdoor perspective, which is included in the gray is indoor and outdoor, you see a lot more variability. That is largely, that variability is attributed to weather patterns. When it tends to be drier, customers often tend to irrigate more. When it's wetter, customers tend to irrigate less. That said, if you have water restrictions and other things in place, if you're in a drought, that can make an instrumental difference. One obvious area where you can see that is, if many of you can remember 2023 of how wet it was in the springtime, you can see that correspondence here in the data where the total per capita water use is a lot lower relative to the other years, and then it's highly attributed to the wet spring, as well as Parker Water's efforts in being more efficient and mindful of weather patterns moving forward. Next slide, please. So Parker Water's in the process of updating their third water efficiency plan. So this is nothing new to Parker Water. It's an update to something they've already had before. It's going to be a state-approved document, meaning that the state has certain requirements and guidelines for water efficiency planning, and Parker Water is very much in line with what those state standards are. They're also aligned with their mission, vision, and values, which is sustaining, this is over in the bottom left-hand corner, sustaining life for our community by effectively managing our vital water resources to ensure quality and value to those that we serve. This purpose is to really show results by reducing future water demands, which consequently also leads into reduction in infrastructure expenditures. And that kind of leads into the next slide. Next slide, please. Next click. Okay, so in developing this plan, Parker Water staff, along with representatives from Castle Pines, Lone Tree, unincorporated Douglas County, and Parker Water, got together through a series of workshops and identified what are the benefits specific to water conservation and efficiency within Parker Water service area. And the first one is costs. So that expands everything from treatment costs in terms of if you have less water to treat, less chemicals are needed, less energy needed to pump distributions around to pump water around the distribution system, as well as long-term demand trends can reduce the cost for additional new supplies, as well as infrastructure needed for those new supplies. And so there can be a real cost savings when it comes to using less water. In addition, individually to each customer, if you're using less water, there's going to be less, your water bill is going to be less. Next click, please. Another benefit is long-term sustainability and water security. So Heather Justice had mentioned that Parker Water does rely on the Denver groundwater basin for a certain portion of their water supplies. The Denver groundwater basin over time has been pumped for a long time, and that groundwater is non-renewable. So what we're seeing is that groundwater levels are declining, both underlying Parker Water as well as in the South Metro area. And so being able to use less water puts less pumping stress on the Denver Basin groundwater aquifer, which then consequently allows that aquifer system to remain around longer, as well as be available when really needed in drought conditions, so that it can increase water security. Also, just using less water puts less pressure on the entire system and can allow more opportunity and flexibility to optimize the system in general. Next benefit, please. Next click. Environmental stewardship. I showed you the previous image of more of a Colorado scape. Here's a meadow that's close to Parker's water, one of Parker's facilities. It too is very much more of a native Colorado scape. And you can see the diversity here amongst grasses and flowers. And so there's a huge level of environmental benefit to the urban community. Another thing to point out about here too, when it comes to environmental stewardship, is having a healthy tree canopy. Tree canopy requires irrigation. So this is not just a no or not all in terms of irrigation. Like, their irrigation is needed, particularly to preserve the tree canopy, but it's doing it in a wise, efficient way where that water is being productive in terms of helping the trees and not being wasted. A last benefit? Community outreach. So water efficiency and conservation is one of the key interfaces between Parker Water and the general public. And Parker Water dedicates a lot of time and energy into creating educational campaigns that Heather Johnson will be talking about, and other efforts to really engage with the community. And that is the public, that is also with those at Parker Water Services, so Castle Pines, Lone Tree, unincorporated Douglas County, and Parker, on really working together and collaboratively on reducing water use. Everyone has a piece of the puzzle here. Next slide, please. So the plan calls out some specific goals or areas of focus. One is to have a quantitative reduction in future water demands. And the way that manifests is back to that per capita water use, so demand per person. Currently, Parker Water is at about, on average, at an annual of 123 gallons per capita per day. The goal is to go down to about 112 gallons per capita per day by 2035, so in 10 years. And so that is something that Parker Water monitors on a very routine basis to really look at how well are we doing and remaining accountable to their water efficiency program. Next click, please. So other series of goals and focus when it comes to this plan, we'd already mentioned the power and importance of community engagement. So really engaging and empowering and engaging the community and really enabling them to understand what can be done. Maintaining fiscal sustainability, so having a sustainable financial plan, which also comes into play with water fees and rates. And it is important to ensure that Parker Water is sustainable, and at the same time, develop rates that really help promote and incentivize wise water use over time. So finding that appropriate balance. The upper right-hand corner, also requiring efficient water use by those large irrigators and commercial users. So this is an area where it's been identified that savings, particularly in an outdoor perspective, additional savings can be achieved. And so Heather Johnson will talk a little bit more about this, about activities that Parker Water is pursuing to help make this happen. And then back to that important piece when it comes to collaboration and coordination with all the stakeholders, with those that Parker Water services, of really reaching out to the leaders, those that are representative of various entities that Parker Water works with, and the general public, and ensuring that coordination. Next slide, please. And so there are a variety of activities that are currently in the plan for accomplishing this, and they span a broad spectrum, everything from planning and implementation, more to a regulatory stance when it comes to development and codes. And while there's some indoor focus, mostly it is on the outdoor piece of things. So I'm going to hand it over to Heather Johnson now to talk more specifically about what Parker Water is doing in terms of activities.
Hello, next slide, please. Parker Water has a strong history of working with the entities it serves: Lone Tree, Parker, Castle Pines, and unincorporated Douglas County. Over the past 5 years, as water efficiency has actively become more interlinked with land use planning, the level of collaboration has increased and become more interlinked, has become more routine in the many mutual areas of interest. We recognize that achieving meaningful water conservation outcomes requires open communication, shared responsibility, and strong partnerships. Next slide. What Parker Water is doing. Metering water supplies and accounting for losses. Parker Water has been metering our source water since the 1980s. All source water, including Denver Basin and alluvial wells, Cherry Creek diversions, and WISE deliveries are metered. Additionally, all customer water is metered through our Advanced Metering Infrastructure, or AMI. AMI improves our ability to collect frequent and accurate water usage data to improve billing, leak detection, and water resource management. Accurate metering is essential to understanding how water is used and where it may be lost. By tracking water, we can identify inefficiencies, reduce waste, and ensure equitable access. One of the ways that Parker Water does this is through participating annually in AWWA's non-revenue water loss audit. This helps us to account for all water losses in our system. Best practices for rules and regulations. Parker Water's rules and regulations are designed to promote responsible water use, prevent water waste, and promote long-term water availability for all community members. Rules and regulations are continually reviewed and updated to reflect changes to state laws and regulations, as well as water use best practices. Our most recent updates made our watering times mandatory, and they also incorporated Senate Bill 24-005 regulations, which prohibits the installation of non-functional and artificial turf and invasive plant species on commercial, institutional, or industrial properties after January 1st, 2026. We also have a tiered water rate structure. We've had a tiered water rate structure since 1988. Tiered water structures encourage conservation by aligning water costs with usage levels. Customers who use water efficiently benefit from lower rates, while higher usage tiers reflect the increased demands on resources. This approach promotes fairness, supports long-term sustainability, and helps fund essential infrastructure improvements. Next slide. Parker Water invests in a water conservation ad campaign. This last year, we advertised in movie theaters, RTD stops, shopping carts, and in print newspaper. Perhaps you've seen one of our ads. I hope you have. These ads help raise awareness and spark conversations about the importance of saving water. We also have a website that we update regularly, and we also have a presence on social media. This helps us to share water saving tips, promote our conservation programs, and it helps us engage with our community. In the center picture is a picture of the water fair that we participated in just recently. This water fair was hosted by South Metro Water Supply Authority. It took place in, I believe, Castle Rock at their really great park that they have there. This annual event is geared toward youth and to families, and it is a fun, hands-on event that connects the community with all aspects of water education. It had interactive booths, it had some really cool foam that the kids got to play in, it gave expert advice, and it provided a great way to learn more about how to protect our water resources. So all these tools help normalize water conservation as a shared community value. They make information accessible, encourage participation in local programs, and empower residents to make simple, impactful actions. Next slide, please. Here at Parker Water, we have a great educational program, and we encourage everyone to take advantage of them. First, I wanted to talk about our rebates for irrigation equipment. To incentivize customers to use EPA WaterSense approved smart irrigation equipment, we offer a rebate for irrigation devices such as weather-based controllers, high-efficiency irrigation nozzles, and rain sensors. These upgrades can reduce outdoor water use and improve efficiency. Our Slow the Flow program is a program that we partner with Resource Central. We provide free sprinkler system consultations to help residents optimize their irrigation. In this program, technicians will come out to your yard and they'll look over your sprinkler irrigation system and help you to find leaks or inefficiencies, and then they'll help you create a watering schedule based on your individual irrigation system. So it's a great program. We also have Garden in the Box. This is another program that we partner with Resource Central, and these are pre-designed garden kits that feature low water plants or adaptive plants, drought tolerant plants, native plants. There's a bunch of different options from shade to partial shade to full sun, and we offer a $25 rebate on that if you purchase those Garden in the Boxes. They're great plants, really healthy, great program to take advantage of. We also partner with Resource Central on a turf replacement program. This is a program that we offer with South Metro Water again. And this program allows residents to take out a portion of their healthy Kentucky bluegrass and replace it with low water plants. This is a really great opportunity to overcome that barrier to cost of retrofitting a landscape. And I encourage everyone to take advantage of that one if they can. We also encourage people to come out to our headquarters here at Parker Water and visit our interpretive gardens. They're outside our headquarters, and there's a couple different gardens that we have. We have a dapple garden or a fiery garden. We also have a celestial garden, but each of the gardens demonstrates how you can use low water plants in your landscape, and it gives them a real visual idea of what it might look like. And so it's a great way to educate people about low water landscaping. And finally, we have WaterWise landscape classes. We host these free classes here at our headquarters. I'm hosting one coming up this September 17th here at Parker Water headquarters at 7 p.m. And I will be teaching it, and the title is WaterWise Landscapes with Autumn Appeal, Berries, Bark, and Beauty. So I hope you can attend that class if you are able. Next slide, please. What can residents and businesses do? So one of the easiest things that our residents can do is to use our monitoring software. We have a program called AquaHawk currently, but in October of this year, we will be transitioning to a new program called Spry. But currently you can use AquaHawk all the way up until December. And AquaHawk, what it does is it provides real-time alerts for people on their water use. So you can find out how much water you're using, and you can monitor if you have unusual water use. And so it helps people in that early detection, and it helps them save money because they can find the leaks earlier. We also want people to be able to find areas where they can improve water efficiency. And this starts with a basic understanding of how and where water is used. And this is where we encourage people to use our programs like the irrigation audits, the education classes, the smart technology rebates, and it helps customers to pinpoint opportunities for conservation, whether it's upgrading equipment or adjusting watering schedules. These small changes are what can lead to big water savings. Next slide, please. A few more things that residents and businesses can do is first just talk to neighbors and local friends about water. Water conservation is a community effort, and one of the most powerful ways we can make a difference is by starting conversations. Share tips, resources, programs offered by Parker Water with your neighbors and friends. And then when we talk about water in everyday conversation, we raise awareness and we inspire others to take action. Next, please reach out to us with any questions or feedback about our programs or our classes or anything that we do here at Parker Water. And you can send your comments or your questions to conservation@pwsd.org. Next, report water waste. This is really important, and it's because a lot of people don't realize they're wasting water. They don't realize they have a water leak or their sprinkler head is pointing the wrong direction. And so when we have the opportunity to go out and talk to our customers about what's happening in their landscape, they can fix the problem. And it's also a good opportunity for us to be able to educate that customer about water waste or proper water use. And then finally, we want you guys to provide us feedback on our water efficiency plan. If you go to the next slide, Ned, I'll show you. Yeah, this is our cover for our water efficiency plan, and our public comment period is open until September 19th. We've already received several comments and questions, and we hope we receive more after this webinar. We want to thank you for attending this webinar, and we're grateful for your commitment to water conservation, and we want to remind you that long-term sustainability requires a collective commitment to adopting water efficient and responsible water use practices. And I want to end that there.